Okay, in this episode we're going to be talking about the fallout from Usman v Buckley, the UFC Fight Night main event that happened last night when I'm recording this, but this video will drop in a few days' time. But honestly, there's not a great deal to talk about from this main event. Usman put in a good performance. Usman's performance was particularly what impressed me the most. Buckley, I'm not going to say Buckley didn't show up, but Buckley done what Buckley normally does, threw heavy shots, but he was sort of out of range, or Usman was able to weather the storm really well. And considering Usman's a guy who's been out of the octagon for a long time now, and a guy's coming off three losses in a row, to be able to weather the storm that Buckley's bringing, it is impressive to me at this point in his career. Buckley was loading up on shots, throwing big haymakers. He wasn't able to get through to Usman, wasn't able to rock him, and then Usman sort of out-wrestled him for 5 rounds, or 4 rounds. I think the fifth round was a lot more competitive, and Buckley was landing a bit more, and Buckley was always applying the pressure. Even from the start of the fight, Buckley was applying pressure, but Usman, like I said, Usman was able to weather the storm. A really impressive win from Usman. Like I said, mentally, more so what impressed me the most from this fight was mentally what I saw from Usman, where I wasn't expecting him to be able to weather the storm, like this. I think a lot of people were expecting Buckley to come out there and probably stop Usman, because Buckley's been stopping a lot of guys. Buckley stopped Colby, stopped Wonderboy, stopped a lot of guys, and he's shown himself to be one of the bigger punchers at welterweight. And I'm thinking, if Usman can take his shots at if Usman can take Buckley's shots at welterweight, then it is promising. It is promising that Usman could potentially have a second run at the top of the welterweight division. It is kind of crazy that a guy who hasn't won a fight in nearly 4 years is still ranked in the top 5. That is crazy, but welcome to the UFC. What's next for Usman? Obviously, Usman wants a title shot, but he shouldn't get a title shot, in my opinion. You don't go 1-3 in your last 4 and get a title shot. That's not how this works, right? I was talking to Evan earlier. Maybe they do a Edwards v Usman 4. The thing is, Usman can beat Edwards. He's got the skill set to beat him. It's just mentally. I guess the second fight, when they fought, Leon Edwards won, obviously, but was losing the fight. Usman was winning and then he lost. And then the second fight, Usman was clearly just shook. That could happen again if they were to fight again for the 4th time. That could happen again, right? But at each, both guys are at different interesting points in their careers where that fight actually does make a lot of sense. I think for both guys, like I said, they're sort of at a crossroads where they're still near the top of the division, but aren't good enough to win a world title again. Also, Usman's got the Bilal fight potentially there, where I don't think he's a huge fan of Bilal, but hey man, he's another guy top of the division. Who knows? These guys could fight, and it'd be a very boring fight, but it'd be an eliminator, right? It would be a fight that would mean one guy would be able to progress and the other guy would sort of fall by the wayside, because the welterweight division isn't super stacked at the moment. There's a few names at the top, to be fair. Islam's coming up, JDM's at the top, Bilal, Sean Brady as well. Don't forget about Sean Brady. Sean Brady's still at the top of the division, right? And he's going to be chomping for a title shot very soon. But yeah, an interesting fight. Potentially some interesting options for Usman there. Sean Brady, a Bilal fight. If he was to win one of those fights, then he could get a title shot next. Yeah, if he could beat Bilal or Sean Brady, then he definitely can get a title shot. I don't think he does beat either of those two guys, though, to be honest. Because he's not that good of a striker. But that being said, everyone was talking about Kamaru Usman's knees before this fight. He wrestled Joaquin Buckley for 4 rounds, basically. He basically wrestled him for 4 rounds, so he was good enough. His knees were good enough for that, right? But yeah, Usman's back. He's turned back the clock. He looked solid. He could take a shot. He weathered the storm really well. And that's really what I was looking for, the mental side of it. Because we know Usman's not a great striker. He's a very good wrestler. But obviously the fact that I'm hearing all this talk about his knees and stuff, I'm thinking, well, he's not really going to be able to wrestle much. And he's not a great striker, so how can he beat Buckley? But his knees were clearly fine. His knees were clearly fine, and he could wrestle Buckley, and he done a good job, and he won the fight, and he's going to be on to bigger and better things for his next fight. So yeah, interesting place we are in the UFC welterweight division at the moment. Like I said, a few good names at the top: Brady, Bilal, JDM, Islam, I suppose, and Usman. The division's looking interesting, and then you go the tier below. You've obviously still got your Buckleys, you've still got your Ian Garys that are still knocking about. It's interesting. And we'll see what's next for the UFC welterweight division, and we'll see what's next for Kamaru Usman as well. What do you think's next for Usman? Do you think Usman should get a title shot, or do you think, he needs another title eliminator before he gets that title shot? I'll be curious to know what you guys think. Another episode of the Side Quest, and I'm out. Peace.